NFL record for the worst completion percentage. This is a game you need to win. This is a divisional matchup against a team you should beat. This is how you stack up wins. Welcome back to i75Live. We are on episode 28, the episode after the Super Bowl, as football is done. A little surprising, maybe it was more for the halftime show, but it was the most watched Super Bowl in Super Bowl history.
Yeah, that's
when
crazy.
People were saying, "Oh no, we're gonna riot. We're not gonna watch it."
People
this year.
did not stick to their guns on that, apparently, including us.
I told you that's how it would turn out.
Everyone was pissed for the week, but then they saw all of the Super Bowl promos and they were like, "Oh yeah,
or
I'll watch it."
It could have also
Sure.
been. We saw the score on social media and we're like, oh, we got to turn into this ass whooping because that could also be the case. But yes, most watched Super Bowl. We'll get into that. Before we get into that, there's a little bit of we'll go in a little bit of NBA because we thought this was kind of funny.
This is crazy. I don't think this has ever happened before. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but so right before we released last week's episode, the Lakers made another trade for a center, which is like the last thing they needed. They made the huge trade for Luka. The biggest question was, okay, who's protecting the rim now that Anthony Davis is gone? And so they made a trade. 23-year-old center, he's like 7'2", Mark Williams, longest wingspan in the league, from Charlotte, traded for him. And they traded their guard that they just drafted out of Tennessee, Dalton Knecht. And then that trade was voided over the weekend because apparently Mark Williams failed his physical. And so Knecht and Williams are back on the teams that just traded them. So as an athlete, Dawson, how would you feel if you had gotten traded, pretty much shipped away, the same year you're drafted by that team, and then a few days later you find out, oh, it's time to go back to that locker room?
So the funniest part was seeing him on the bench in street clothes a couple games ago, where you could kind of tell his facial expressions is just like, this sucks. Like, this team literally just shipped me off, and now I have to be back here and listen to...
But, like, as a competitor, do you think that creates... I think, personally, he's got a massive chip on his shoulder after this.
Oh, 100%.
He may start playing better than he might have ever been able to play because of this.
That, or he's going to request a trade after this year and want to go somewhere else.
That's true.
But yes, as a just competitor and wanting a franchise to... Because, we hear it all the time, like, thank you for believing in me.
Yes.
Thank you.
You guys didn't believe shit.
They didn't believe in me. They were ready to ship me off. So it was a little funny. I thought him sitting on the bench in street clothes where everyone was kind of pulling videos of him just kind of staring there and looking. It was pretty funny.
I think so. And I'm rooting for him now.
The situation's funny. Not like him as a person him as like his NBA journey. That's not funny. I hope he figures it out. And like you said,
I think it will.
He's a great shooter.
Oh, yeah.
He's proven that. He's a rookie, so that's great.
He's lengthy.
But as like a thanks for the organization believing in me,
yeah, that's out the window.
But it goes towards the comments that you posted on our Instagram of who was it? Was it a Schroeder?
Dennis Schroeder
was traded.
Comparing,
he was traded like to 5 teams in the span of 24 hours and
crazy.
compared it to like, modern day slavery of the NBA just shipping players off here and there.
The NBA is wild. Like this, it's always been like that. But I feel like over the last few years, it's just players are getting sent every which way, and it's like they're never sticking. Like you said, Schroeder was traded to 4 different teams in 24 hours.
Yeah.
2 of those teams, I don't even think he took a flight over there. He just got redirected straight to Detroit, where he is now.
Yeah,
like that.
Do you think they're going to give him jerseys to all those teams so he can like hang them up in his trophy room someday?
He probably didn't even.
Or does he get does he get a basketball card?
He probably didn't even have a number. How would you get a basketball card So
the NBA, like trading in general in the NBA is very weird. They're trading picks like all the way into like 2030, shit like that. And there's only 2 rounds in the NBA draft, so it's like first or second rounder. So I don't know.
It's really weird. It's really weird.
This is why people don't really watch the NBA, because there's so much like turnover, and then add on players not playing, which I know we brought up last week that players are apparently healthy now. There's no untouchable players for the most part. Even Jokic acknowledged that, which is crazy. Crazy.
The NBA is a crazy, crazy league and world when it comes to everything that goes into that. On to the Super Bowl now. This is, like we mentioned, of the big event that happened. Saints Kellen Moore is now going to officially, it came out before the Super Bowl that he was going to take this job after, no matter what. So he is the head coach of the Saints now, which they're...
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Have
They're
fun.
in cap hell.
They got a roster over 30. They got no quarterback.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge in itself. But you got your ring. Congrats. You played you called an amazing season of plays, of
I would
playing
like
your
to bring
strengths.
something up, though, because of the Lions fans that got all pissy when Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn were taking interviews and deciding on where they wanted to go during a playoff game. What's the excuse for Kellen Moore? The news coming out that he had already, he's taken the Saints job
Before the
and then
game.
going out and whooping the shit out of the Chiefs. So it's like,
Well, if it would have been the other way around, I think
it would have fed
been a
into that
problem.
narrative.
Yeah.
But since, the Eagles won in alarmingly dominating fashion, it's gotta say.
So to go on top of that, I know this stat's been thrown around a lot. 42 dropbacks from the Chiefs. The Eagles did not blitz one time, had 16 pressures, and had 6 sacks.
That's the most in Mahomes' career.
How did they not blitz when he was running around like his head was cut off all
They
night?
had 4 pass rushers, that D line, and so this is my view on all this is when they lost to the Chiefs a couple years ago in the Super Bowl. This to me was okay. That's what we didn't do to beat Mahomes.
Well, their defensive line in that Super Bowl, good point, is that I think they were pretty much out of their prime. That was like Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham was still there, and Ndamukong Suh. They had defensive linemen that were all over 30 for the most part. And this time around, all of their defensive linemen outside of Brandon Graham playing his last game are in their prime. They're like 23 through 25. And they're all pinning their ears back and rushing the passer.
And look what they did the last 2 drafts.
Yeah, Jalen Carter,
that was
Jordan
the
Davis,
most important position to
Nakobe
them.
Dean,
So-
Nolan Smith.
So
yes.
to me, it's a prime example of, okay, we have this, and they also got Saquon. That was a huge piece as well.
Yeah.
So the Saquon and the D line to go, if we can't get in a shootout with these guys, because look what we did. We're going to have to play some of these
Teams don't win
teams.
shootouts against the Chiefs.
Or against, I'd say the Bills, the Ravens, like you're going into those games knowing, okay, we're going to play these teams. We do not want to go in a shootout.
Defense.
Let's do exactly what we did. And now this is the second time that Mahomes has lost a Super Bowl
Because of that.
this.
Because of that,
Because of
yes.
this. The first one against Tampa, it was the same thing.
That's true.
This one, same way. So
You found the league. This is the dinner bell being rung for how to beat the
Yeah.
Chiefs. This is everyone pay attention. If you have a stout defensive line, and granted, the Chiefs have a weak offensive line because that's not always the case. But this year it was against Tampa. It was. You found the formula. That's the recipe for success against the Chiefs.
And-
Make Mahomes uncomfortable, and honestly, don't let him stay in the pocket.
Well, and I know the joke kind of going around was, well, the Chiefs figured out how to stop Saquon and forgot about everything else. And the Eagles' defense or offense didn't do anything, I think, spectacular. But what they did is they
moved
controlled
the
the ball.
ball. Yep.
They moved the ball. They didn't shy away from the run game.
I saw this halfway into the second quarter. The Eagles already had like 15 minutes of control of the ball.
Oh, yeah, because the Chiefs went 3 and out their first 2 drives.
Yeah.
And then, the interception happened, and then the other interception happened within there. So, and it was a really, and this is, I mentioned it. I hate how all the main titles and main questions, it's what happened to the Chiefs?
Why did they play so bad? Yeah.
How about we label it as in,
the Eagles looked incredible.
The Eagles looked incredible.
The Eagles have never looked better.
The Eagles' D-line was the savior of the game. The Eagles' secondary was amazing against Travis Kelce and against...
I think we really need to have a conversation about Jalen Hurts. He has gotten disrespected, drugged through the mud for years, and all he's done is win games. And outside of the Super Bowl that they played last time, he doesn't make mistakes in big games. Really.
He also, like you told me, I didn't realize this, he's never had the same offensive coordinator for more than 1 year.
It's crazy.
So,
and he's been doing this consistently.
Yes, and yes, Saquon helped this year.
So does the tush push.
So does all of it. But Jalen Hurts in this big of moments, we talked about going into this playoffs.
Put up the most points ever in an NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And then on top of that, who was the guy that threw the dagger? The dagger that put the Chiefs to sleep.
Devontae Smith.
50-yard bomb, perfect ball to Devontae
when everyone
Smith.
thought you were just going to run the ball, control
it was the first play of their drive.
The first play of the drive, launched it.
It's crazy. I'm sitting there screaming no fucking way. way.
Did you see the Chiefs watch party on that too? When they had the Chiefs watch party, like the whole crowd, that was it. They knew they were cooked.
So I also thought this was pretty funny. Saquon, the O-line, and Hurts were on Jimmy Fallon last night. And Jimmy Fallon asked about the tush push.
Yep. And they don't call it that.
So apparently they don't call it that.
I wonder what they call it.
I wonder what they call it, and I have an idea. It's
the ass
blast. It's something along those lines because he said, "Well, I can't say it." So I hope it's something like that, something funny. And then he looked to Saquon and he was like, "Well, what's your part in the play?" And he said, "Well, I have the easiest job. I just get to push Jalen's tush." So to me, I'm sorry, Philly fans, even your own players
they know how
who are running this play know how stupid this play is and that it works. Yeah. That is what I got at your own players. The guy who scores the touchdowns off of this is laughing and making fun of this stupid play.
They know that it's so it's unfair. And honestly, so we have Chiefs fans in our fantasy league that we've been doing for years, damn near a decade at this point.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Jerry, the dad of the other Chiefs fans,
Jerry Twig,
he brought up an incredible point that I honestly overlooked when we had this post go viral last week about the tush push. But it's with such an emphasis put on from the league about how you cannot lower your head to initiate contact, your helmet, from either side, offense or defense. Offensive players get called for it now. Why are all 5 of Philly's offensive linemen allowed to spear forward
and the defense has to do it too?
And Chris Jones got hurt on this play in the Super Bowl. Yeah. So it's like you can't say that it's not affecting how that play is being run so successfully. It's not fair. One, and then Jerry, another great point is that the offense gets to initiate the contact. They know the snap count. They know when to start the force.
Or
the
you
defense
see the situation
is only reacting.
of what happened to Washington, where all of a sudden it's penalty, and it's some way we're just going to give them the touchdown.
There is no way to stop the play. There's not a way to stop the play, especially when you got a team like that, an O-line like that, and a quarterback like that. It's not fair.
Well, you guys proved your viral video from last week. You proved it because exactly what you said. Well, maybe not quite. They didn't win on the tush push. It was the first score of the game.
It was easy.
They got one of their best players hurt.
Yeah.
Exactly. But they ended up winning because of it. And so guess what?
Chris
They
Jones
lost their three-peat. Yeah. The world is healed.
Yep.
Now they will ban that play finally.
I think they do. So not even if they don't ban it, they need to look at it under a thicker lens, which I said that a lot last week. It's necessary. It cannot go another offseason remaining the same. Even if it doesn't get banned, you got to look at it.
Yeah.
At least it's in some aspect.
I agree. To go more on to Super Bowl and to the storylines out of this, is Travis Kelce done? There's a lot of clips going on of his recent podcast on his new heights of
that
him.
And him during the game.
Oh, it was terrible. It was
checked out on the sidelines, checked out on the field.
Yeah. And now he's starting to kind of reel it back a little bit on this latest episode of saying, I let my team down, I should have been better.
I respect a lot of what he said.
I do respect that, but he's also saying a lot of stuff of what his brother said when his brother retired.
Last year.
I just, for me to really do this again, my body, and if I'm going to do it, I have to do it 100% for my teammates.
Think he's leaning towards something?
I seriously don't. And the cap hit that he has, unless he just seriously wants to come back and play football for this team, he's going to have to take a massive pay cut. Mm-hmm. He's going to have to. I don't know. I don't see
He's not the only one that's going to need to take a pay cut either. So a perfect way to segue into our next segment is that the Chiefs right now have over 60% of their cap space invested into just 5 players. And off the top of my head, I'm guessing that's Joe Tooney, Patrick Mahomes,
Chris Jones,
Travis Kelce, and Creed Humphrey.
Okay.
That's their 5. And outside of one guy on defense, that's a hell of a lot of money invested into offense. And the Chiefs have 20 players this offseason set to be unrestricted free agents. On top of Trey Smith, who's another offensive guy, Nick Bolton, who 2 weeks ago, Steve Spagnuolo called the Patrick Mahomes of his defense. How are you going to pay him? And then you're losing Justin Reed. Those are just starters. You're leaving so much of your rotational guys that are going to be getting paid. in some way or the other.
And on top of that, they're going to have to go out and pay for some alignment.
Well,
and we saw that against the Eagles.
Think about it, though, you guys. This is the plan. This is the plan for every NFL team. Know when your window is, pay the money, get your championships, and they've just done that now. They didn't get their three-peat, and now they got to pay the piper.
Hold on, I have a little something
I knew you were going to go into this.
So this is why... I think enough is said by just showing.
So that brings up a great point because Brady went, 10 years without winning a Super Bowl, went through a completely different team, new supporting cast, and won 4 more Super Bowls. So now I think I was having a very, not heated debate, but a very honest discussion with one of our friends, Dylan, ironically, who honestly was disagreeing with you when you said that if Mahomes three-peated, that he would be in line with Brady. Regardless of what I think what you meant to say, and I think you should have gone into more context on it, is that
I didn't, and that's why I was I was kind of waiting till the offseason to see what happened, and then we can really look at it and go, okay, what's next?
That's why. And it's so now, because of what happened on Sunday, Mahomes is nowhere near the GOAT debate. Put that on hold.
Oh, yeah.
Montana now enters the conversation, re-enters the conversation. But now we're waiting to see what Mahomes does with the next supporting cast, because that three-peat Brady never did, something that no one's ever done. That's enough to put you with the GOAT. But you didn't do it, so now
So what was he disagreeing with? Because it's really easy to look at it now after he lost the game and go, well, obviously he shouldn't be included in that conversation.
Well, no. So what I was trying to, I guess, explain your point of view on was that you were saying if the three-peat happens, Mahomes wouldn't need to do anything else in his career. He would be, with the three-peat, doing something that nobody else did. He would be able, if he had a mediocre back half of his career, he could still be put up with Brady. But because of, how he lost, but losing in general, we're going to have to see. The rest of your career now matters a whole lot more than it would have if you three-peated.
So let me tell you, too, honestly, I was being a little nice and a little too politically correct when I was talking about this a couple weeks ago, because in the back of my head, when I got done talking about it, I was totally like, you sound like a loser right now. Like if Tom Brady was listening to you after everything that I said and cheered for, and probably not, he probably won't. I mean, that'd be cool. But it was like I was almost a disgrace looking back at some of that stuff.
Tom Brady would
towards
be so
my
upset
team
with you.
And towards what we had, to where look now, if he would have got the three-peat, I would have still said, hey, he got the three-peat. That's something Brady never did. But he's still, I mean, he still has to kind of replicate.
He's still got the core.
And so what Tom was able to do, and this is why people are now going, okay, we were crazy to say that this dude was already better than Tom.
Yeah.
When you really look at it from what he did and what Mahomes did to this is insane.
Say what you want, but that 2018 team that they won with was anything but a juggernaut. Like that, the 13-3 Super Bowl, the Super Bowl sucked. But that was probably one of the worst teams that Tom has had. And then he won with it. And so it's like, now, with Mahomes not having a three-peat, can you do that? Yeah. Can you do anything like that? So we will see. It's going to be incredible to see.
What did you say? Tom basically had, what, three?
He had three
careers,
Hall of Fame careers.
He had three careers when you think about it. And so he went through this transition.
If you go,
he went through the transition that Mahomes hasn't had to do yet. And now he's about to because of cap hell. He's going to have to go through the transition. So let's see what he looks like in another year.
Well, my point on the whole GOAT debate is you can't have the conversation anymore because Brady, the person who was being compared to Montana for so long, that was the guy that he was trying to beat. Mahomes isn't on top of him now. Montana was 4-0 in Super Bowls. He never threw an interception in a Super Bowl. He blew out John Elway. He beat Dan Marino. Like, Mahomes, like, what have you done in those Super Bowls that makes you that much better than Montana and what he did? Yeah. I'm serious. I'm not, like, this isn't me just shitting on Mahomes.
No, he's going to go down as one of the best to ever do it.
Part of the conversation that me and Dylan were talking about is Mahomes, outside of Aaron Rodgers, is probably the purest thrower of the football I've ever seen. That's not even a discussion.
Oh, come on. You're forgetting about Dan Marino.
Well, in this era of football.
Okay.
Yeah. In this
Sorry,
era
I forgot.
of football.
You guys are in your 20s.
I never saw Dan Marino play, so I wish. Like a John Elway.
You missed a hell of a time, let me tell you what.
No,
he was incredible.
Zero INTs thrown, 11 touchdowns. Mahomes has 10 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, which is already more than Brady.
And Brady played
had 10 appearances.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't have that discussion anymore. The NFL media, like we said, you have to have a king. Mahomes is king, but there's always someone to beat. And so he will continue to be compared to Brady.
Yes.
And we'll see how that conversation develops after next season. Because I feel like this season and this offseason coming up is probably the most important one that the Chiefs have faced in a long time. Long time.
Yeah.
And I'm personally going to be paying a lot of attention to what they do.
We're going to see who wants to potentially win rings and who wants the money.
Tyreek the Chiefs, they are going to be a completely different team next year. And it could be great or it could be horrible. And you got a lot of time in between it.
Something too is, I mean, it goes to when Tom was that interview that he had with Colin Cowherd when he was talking about, his mindset and just how he went about
Super Bowl losses mean more than anything.
That, and I mean, he never got blown out in anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the one time where it was like, someone finally got him, he came back from 28-3 and beat that team. Yes, did he have to have other things happen with his defense? Absolutely, like everything.
The catch.
He was a catch away from 2 more rings in each of those.
Well, that's a whole different story.
That's on the other side, yeah.
But to go on top of just the pure I think it really opened up everyone's eyes of going,
Tom was
different.
And I think even Mahomes was saying that in his Super Bowl press conferences before the game, is like being in this position made him appreciate the Patriots' greatness even more because he acknowledged, being a Cowboys fan growing up, that Mahomes hated the Patriots. Yeah. And getting there and being the person that is hated, he's like, yeah, dude, this shit is not easy. And
the pre-interview though, before the Super Bowl, when Tom was interviewing him, and they got to the very end and said, "What's it going to mean if you host this trophy up on Sunday night?" And he looked at him, and it was just this weird smirk, and he said, "Greatness." And just the look those two gave each other, you could tell. I don't know that he knew how he wanted to answer.
Mahomes
that
has
question.
Lost a combined 71-31 in Super Bowls that Tom Brady was present for.
That's a pretty funny stat too.
I just don't think you should have a GOAT conversation until seasons.
No, where everyone's so quick.
Well, that's why
we kind of got sucked into it too a couple weeks ago. Everyone's so quick to having it, and someone needs to be this, and someone needs, and it's good media talk, and it's good to. But at the end of the day, everyone saw Tom was different, and
let's
we need to dial it back. He's got to prove some
stuff.
Now, if
this conversation goes completely out the window if Mahomes marches back next season and runs through the AFC again, wins the Super Bowl. We're right back having this discussion in 12 months.
This is also true. This is very true.
And it'll be deserving because if the Chiefs win next year, Mahomes is going to have a huge part to do with it.
Well, but didn't Brady though win 2, lose 1, and then win again? So didn't he have 3 in a span of 4 years? I thought he did.
He did it twice.
The Eagles were also the one
there was
that
one
beat
game in between.
His
what could have been
first
the
3, there was 1 year in between,
Yeah.
and then his second 3, there was he beat. I can't remember who exactly it was, and then he lost to the Eagles, and then he won 1. Mm-hmm. So the Eagles have now dethroned 2 three-peats.
2 three-peats.
One the Patriots in the middle of theirs,
see the Eagles.
and then the Chiefs this year. So the Eagles,
dynasty killers. Dynasty killers.
But to go enough Chiefs, I want to talk a little bit more.
Wait a minute, the enough Chiefs though. Check out the studio, you guys. We've got green,
got Eagles,
and that's exactly where I want to go. We're going to talk about the Eagles again because Jalen Hurts.
Eagles, baby.
He answered. He, like we mentioned, he answered all the doubters, showing out. I think you said what he had the Super Bowl record for quarterback. He went.
He was 17 for 22, 221 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Super Bowl record for quarterback, 72 rushing yards, another rushing touchdown to put on top of that. So 3. He did have 1 bad interception that was underthrown.
He did.
Didn't end up mattering. He answered the bell in every which way possible. The whole playoffs, absolutely. And outside of a Saquon courtesy kneel, they won all 3 of their playoff games by 17 or more points.
Yeah.
It's
and how
crazy.
About how when they finally scored, it was like the Eagles JV team out there.
Yeah.
The
backups.
That score was 40-6. The score of the Super Bowl was 40-6, and they stat pad at the end.
I wouldn't say stat padding. That just because I don't remember who brought it up. It's just that's a team fighting to the end.
It is.
That's for pride. You don't want to. You don't want that score to be 40-6.
Yes.
And you want to show that yeah, you couldn't score when the Eagles' defense's legs were fresh.
They had the damn Gatorade bath when the 2-point or the 2-minute warning didn't even go off, and they were showering in Gatorade.
And then they scored again after that. That
the
was the
funny
worst
thing,
deep touchdown.
Dawson, you and I were talking about this during the game, though. So when you had Hurts get pulled, right? So he didn't get to finish. He didn't get to do the kneel down, the victory formation, and you and I were talking about that. But think about it. Saquon earlier, he sat out that game where he could have set the all-time record.
That's a team.
There were no egos on the Eagles.
No,
like they did not care. They had one goal, and it was a ring on their finger.
If I was Jalen Hurts, I would have looked at Sirianni and said, I'm fucking taking that knee at the end of the game. I don't care. I mean, yes, that's who Jalen Hurts is. Yes, that's just his mindset and what he
didn't care.
If I was him, I said, I'm taking the knee.
The last thing to touch on the Super Bowl is that I absolutely love that they stalled on a drive. A.J. Brown's pissed. They get the ball right back. A.J. Brown scores, and then they show in between those plays that A.J. has the book.
Again.
They brought the book. They brought the book to the Super Bowl, and he's reading it. And then he has a holder for it. Yeah. There was a guy tucking the book on the sideline as A.J.'s catching the touchdown.
Yeah.
Shit's so funny.
It was pretty funny.
I love that. I was not a fan of the Eagles for most of the regular season, but yes, they've become very likable the last few weeks.
I would say it's their fans that make them not very likable.
Philadelphia fans just
Saquon, Jalen Hurts. I think those guys were very easy to root for this year.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
100%.
So now we are going to kind of do this was Dylan's idea. I loved it. We're going to do our version of the i75Live Awards.
Yep.
So we've got most surprising team, most disappointing team. We have most surprising player, most disappointing player, the best moment of the year, and the worst moment of the year between us both.
Yep.
So to kick it off, we are going to do
most surprising team.
Most surprising team. This one's a little obvious. I want to give some limelight to honorable mentions in a way.
Yeah.
I think Denver's a great honorable mention with what they did. The Chargers with what they did. Brand new coaches, but new quarterback for Denver. Mm-hmm. The Chargers getting a new coach, kind of shipping off all their wide receivers.
Yeah.
Still making a really good year, making it to the playoffs, both those teams.
Oh, yeah.
Mine, though, it's a little obvious, Washington.
Yes.
I think what Washington did with a brand new coach, a brand new play caller, a brand new quarterback. No one knew who was on that defense besides maybe old Bobby Wagner of way out of his prime. What they were able to do this year and the belief that it was incredible. And that's what the NFL is built on.
Washington is the definition of surprising. And nobody saw this coming. I don't even think Washington fans saw this coming. I know one personally. I know that he didn't see this coming at all. I'm looking at you, Pat. But yeah, crazy, 100% deserving, literally the definition of surprising.
Well, and it's funny too. I remember, I don't know why I remember this, but there was one Washington fan that commented on one of our posts before the season even started and was like, "Yeah, I just really hope my Commanders Jaden Daniels can kind of put it together and we can have some hope."
How you feeling now?
You probably aren't going to see this, but your team made it all the way to the NFC Championship game, lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions.
And they may be getting Myles Garrett in the offseason.
So I think the Commanders and Washington are in great hands right now.
Oh, yeah.
They got to be
for a long time. For a long
time.
They're retaining their offensive coordinator. Yes, Kingsbury has kind of alluded to the fact that he will be gone next offseason for the next coaching cycle. But we shall see. If they keep winning, there's no reason to leave. I mean, the Chiefs keep their coordinators for God knows how long.
Well, and you see Ertz coming out after they lost and saying,
I found his love for football
I want to continue to play with this kid. I wish I was as old as him so I could play my whole career with him.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that's the Jaden Daniels effect of wanting guys wanting guys to play with this kid. Mm-hmm. So it's only free agency is only going to help that. So Washington, I think the stock is just way, way up on Washington.
Yep. And I actually, for my pick, I had to think a little bit too hard about this before it, sprung on me. I was like, no shit. The Vikings in my own division, one of the most surprising teams from this year. It's not close. Up there with Washington. Nobody expected them to win 10 games, let alone fucking 14, and be playing for the 1 seed in Week 18. Yeah. That's crazy. After everything that happened,
they dismantled their team.
They dismantled their team. rookie quarterback that got hurt in the preseason. You're taking on this guy who has been pretty much shipped away from every single destination he's made it to. Sam Darnold turned him around. Your coach wins Coach of the Year. You had, like, sorry to kind of put it on in a darker tone, but you had a player lose his life in the offseason.
Yeah.
Like, not everyone can come back from that.
And he was one of your top picks in the draft,
Yes, it was
too.
one of a corner.
Yeah.
Decimated defense in general. Maybe not decimated, in hindsight because of how well these guys played.
On paper, it was...
On paper, it wasn't a bunch of guys that you're looking at and be like, damn, this is a stacked team. But
it tells
they
you how
came
important
together.
a leader is in any organization.
Yes, organization matters. It 100% does. And the Vikings have it right. Yes, they fumbled again in the postseason. They've been known to do that. It's kind of, their thing at this point. But
you can't take away what they did.
What they did this season is
against some really good teams.
Incredible.
And against probably the best division in football right
yes, absolutely. So, yes, the Vikings, we're here to give you your recognition. You guys take the cake for, outside of Washington, most surprising team.
I'm with Dylan. I take the Vikings, too, for that reason. You can't trade your whole team away and somehow think you're going to do what they did.
Crazy.
Incredible.
Yeah. Most disappointing team. Mine.
Another obvious one.
This is an obvious one. There are some other honorable mentions. I think the Colts can be an honorable mention.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the Texans
they're getting recognition in a different way later on.
Yes, they are.
Thanks to you.
I think the Texans a little bit just because they had so many injuries, so much potential to where it kind of just fell off towards the back half of the year. I know they won their playoff. The Cowboys were another one. But to me, I look at it as the Bengals.
It's gotta be.
It's gotta
be.
The way that you started the season again.
Losing to the Patriots.
You choked away 2 games against the Ravens that I think you should have won.
Yeah.
You lost to the Steelers that you should have won.
Yeah.
And the years that Burrow and Jamar had, and even having the sack leader on your defense to how shit that defense was all year.
Fire your DC afterwards.
Fire your defensive coordinator after. It is.
How is Zach Taylor still the head coach of this team? Is my question.
This got to be his last year. This is his prove it year, or else he's done. And then if he doesn't work out, Kingsbury is probably going to be the head coach in Bengals, Cincinnati.
We'll have to,
That's we could talk about that later.
That's an interesting
one. The Bengals. For the years they had, for the individual statistics that some of their players had.
You would look at their stats.
Oh yeah.
Don't show them the record. Look at that team.
And that
look
team's
at the
in the playoffs.
stats they finished with. You'd be like, oh, this team won like 12 games.
Yes.
Holy shit.
So for them to not be at least a wild card into the playoffs was a huge disappointment.
Massive.
I think for the NFL and also for I know we have a ton of Bengals fans we talk to, and they're in the same boat to where this is stupid.
That's a wasted year.
Wasted year.
Wasted
year.
Oh, like everything came to fruition except your coaching. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, I feel bad for Bengals, but I'll go on to the next one, which is another kind of obvious pick, but the Jets. Yeah. I was so high on the Jets before the season, and I could not have been more wrong.
And this is kind of the opposite of what you said about the Vikings, to where on paper, the Jets were like, this defense played amazing. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers is healthy. Garrett Wilson,
they won
a great
7
running
games
back
with Zach Wilson.
Yeah,
Aaron Rodgers, the culture killer.
Was I crazy to think that they could win more than 7 games? I'm cutting myself some slack. I said they would win 13 games.
You said they would be
the 1 seed. And I said they'd be the 1 seed. So yes, that was criminally wrong. Probably the worst take I've ever had. But I wasn't crazy for thinking it. They had the pieces there. I didn't pay enough attention to how disorganized they were in the offseason. And AJ was one that brought this up to me a number of times throughout the offseason. He was like, they got a lot of distractions going on. It's not going to be what you think it is. And I was like, nah, man. Like, they're going to be good. No, fuck no.
No, they were not.
It was bad. Yeah, 5-12. Team was never on the same page for the entire year. They tried multiple different times to make an attempt to save it by trading for Devontae Adams, firing Saleh. Nothing worked. Nothing worked. And the entire organization just collapsed throughout the season. It was horrible.
Guys, I got to add one, though. Another disappointing season that you guys didn't touch on.
The Bears.
Not well.
Well, we could have.
No, we know the Bears. No, how about the Atlanta Falcons?
Oh, that is a good one. That's a really good one.
The Atlanta Falcons. They were supposed to win their division at least. Like they were going to win their division without even trying.
They had honorable
everything in front of them.
What happened? That's got to be an honorable mention. What happened to Kirk Cousins has got to be a major disappointment. In so many ways.
Oh, that's a great point. And honestly, could have been adding to our surprising teams is Tampa Bay as another surprising team.
So,
although I don't think they necessarily deserved to be counted out.
I'm going to give Tampa Bay some their flowers and some of our next ones. But to go on to finish the Jets, they also have informed Aaron Rodgers that
he's not coming back.
They do not want him.
Yeah.
So I like this by Aaron Glenn going, no, this is my team.
Control back,
and this is what I said. I said, no, if you just want another coach to come in here and be a bitch man to Rodgers, that's what you want.
That's what you're going to get.
That's what you're going to get, and you're going to get the same result. So for Eric Glenn coming in and putting his foot down and going, no, I'm going to make the best of my opportunity. I'm not going to let I know Aaron Rodgers is very liked, but a spoiled little, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I don't care what anyone thinks, regardless if I play like shit. I know he played the back half of the year a little bit better.
Back half of his career, he played great, which makes even less sense that they were,
Well, remember I told you guys a few weeks ago, I said there's only room in New York for one Aaron. One of them's going to go.
And I knew that. So to me, I like that Aaron Glenn is taking control of his situation, of his, opportunity to be the head coach of a football team and kind of doing that. So the Jets will be also interesting to see what they do and how they navigate this free agency.
This offseason, we say it every year, but this offseason is going to be very important for a lot of teams.
So most surprising player, I said I would give Tampa a little bit of their flowers. I've got Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
Baker Mayfield last year, everyone was, it was a fluke. He's, he played very well. Well, let's see if he can do it again. He did it again. He had exactly 4,500 passing yards, 41 total touchdowns, and 16 interceptions. He ended up going to the Pro Bowl because obviously, people
he deserved to be there.
He deserved to be there anyway. I know there were a lot of great quarterbacks.
He was second in the league in touchdown passes.
Yeah, but Baker Mayfield, what he did for that team, some of the throws he made in some big games.
Yeah.
Round of applause to where your career started, to where you bounced around, and
found your home.
To make a name for yourself for this team, getting Mike Evans to pass, or is it to tie or to pass? Tie Jerry Rice, now probably going to pass.
Hopefully.
Jerry Rice's record, that's going to be awesome to watch next year too. I really, really liked Baker this year. He was awesome to watch.
Yep.
He's, I think, very likable to where it's hard not to like him.
Yeah.
So Baker, you earned your flowers. You did it 2 years in a row, and I think you've got a lot more left.
Whose idea was it that was the game we were going to go to this year to see him?
It was Dylan's.
Because that was a shootout.
No, it was Anna's idea.
Oh, that was
we were all
mom.
sitting around somewhere around Thanksgiving or Christmas.
She wanted to see
Mom
Mayfield.
wanted to see, was like, hey, what if we went to a game? Like, who are they playing that would be fun to go watch?
No, this was the start of the college football season when Vanny was here for our first episode.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, and we were talking about, because the game was in October. It was a Thursday night game. It was like week 5. So yeah, it was Anna's idea.
Yeah, and she was like, "What if we went to a game and found a cool team to go play for?"
Well, she's always liked Baker.
To be the best game all year.
She loves Baker. She's always loved him.
The funniest part is she didn't even go with us. We had a ticket for her and everything, and she didn't even go because she didn't feel good that night. She's like, "No, you guys go." So we invited Seth because Seth, we had one extra ticket. Falcons fan.
Hey, well, listen, just so you guys know, we do have a game picked out for this next year.
Do we?
It will not be Tampa Bay.
Well,
it is going to be the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, the Dolphins play.
The Dolphins play here. We're going, and I can tell you one thing.
Yet,
we're not going to be in the 300 section.
Okay.
We will be in the 100 section.
Is that right?
100.
Oh, yes. We'll be down in the 100s.
That's a business write-off.
It definitely is. It'll be an I-75
Yeah, you know what
trip.
sucks, too, is the Patriots play the Falcons, but
is it in Foxborough?
It's in Foxborough. So that would have been awesome if the Dolphins and the Patriots were both here.
The Bears play Washington again next year, and I think that is probably going to be one of the next big rivalries in football between those two quarterbacks. Yes. I think if they follow the same trajectory, they'll be winning their divisions or at least finishing around the same spot every time. With the Eagles being, what they are, it's fair to say that Washington is probably fighting for second place with the Cowboys until they prove that they can be, on top of the Eagles, and same with the Bears. Although we're a little bit further behind. But that will be exciting to go to as well. Whenever
maybe when those two retire from their career, they'll start the TGL version for the NFL, and it'll be a virtual football game. And these guys will be like 45 and 50 years old out there playing.
But to move on to my most surprising player, I'm not moving too far away from yours. I'm staying in the same division, and someone that should be talked about in a much better light, especially after the last 9 weeks. Bryce Young, post-benching, was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And that's not me just over-exaggerating. He literally was. He had 20 total touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 2,100 passing yards, 61.8 completion percentage, 88.9 QBR. I think that's top 3 for that time. And he had, before week 8, 1 big-time throw, which is, I don't know what constitutes a big-time throw. I'm guessing it was a small window.
Probably so many yards
less
down the
than
field.
1 yard of separation for the receiver. 1 big-time throw before week 8. He finished with 27.
Oh.
That's tied for 7th most. And in that time span, that's the most in the league for those 9 weeks, 26. It's crazy. He played lights out. And yeah, their record didn't show it, but Bryce Young showed you. I mean, he was playing like the first overall pick that everyone thought he was going to be. It took him some time.
He brought the Eagles down to the wire.
Yeah.
He brought the Chiefs down to the wire.
Beat the Falcons.
Week
Week 18 when they had hopes of a playoff.
All they had to do was win, and they made it to the playoffs, and he came in
Tampa
and beat
needed
them.
to lose still. But yes, Bryce Young, man. We not just us, everyone was counting him out completely. And then for him to come back after being benched for Andy Dalton and just completely turning around, it's like a complete 180. It's not just he played a little bit better. He looked like a completely different person.
Could be the turnaround of his career that you can look back on and go, that was
a big time throw is defined by, it's on the higher end scale, the PFF scale, of a 1, a 1.5, or a 2.0. That's how they define a big time throw.
What do you mean 1.5?
What is that scaled by?
Yeah, what is that scaled by?
I'll look that up for you right now.
Sweet. Okay, to go into most disappointing player.
There are a lot of options.
I, at the beginning of the year, told you guys not to draft this guy in fantasy. I think I nailed it. Anthony Richardson. He played 11 games this year after only playing 5. This year, 8 touchdowns. This year, only had 8 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 7 fumbles. Taking himself out of that third down and goal to where his team was like, "What are you doing?
Guys, I'm getting kind of tired."
Yeah,
right? I'll see y'all later.
So to me, there was a lot of things and then getting benched after that game, he did that. The Colts are too talented on both sides of the ball, I think, to not. And we saw that when Joe Flacco came in, and all of a sudden they started winning some games to where, this is what it should be. You have really good receivers. You have a really good running back. You have a good O-line. And I think you have a pretty averagely good defense across the league to stop teams and to create turnovers. So to me, Anthony Richardson, you got to figure it out. And I hope he doesn't fall under the category of he was the perfect prospect of his height, how far he could throw the ball,
but it's still
none of that shit matters.
Yeah.
You gotta know how to play quarterback at a high level, the same way we keep on hearing Tom Brady talk about and all this stuff. And to me, you can't do that, and you can't stay healthy. So your one notch that you have is, he can run the ball and he's physical. You can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
You played 5 games last year, your rookie year. We're out for the rest of the year, and then you played 11 this year. Yeah. So if that's going to be
it wasn't a good 11 games.
No, it wasn't.
Hard to watch.
So that's going to be your niche and your X factor ability of running the ball. Well, if you're hurt every year doing it, then it's not going to matter.
It's really not going to matter.
You got to figure out how to do it like Josh. You got to figure out how to do it like Hurts. You got to figure out how to do it like Mahomes. And
there's plenty of people to base your game off of.
Yes,
there's plenty of film.
And
to
Josh
watch.
Allen is my comparison to him. To where if he's probably as big as Josh Allen, can throw it as fast, can throw it as far. He's just not all there when it comes to playing the quarterback position at the NFL level.
He's like 22 still.
And he only played how many games in college? Maybe 12, 13, 14, 15? Barely anything.
Yeah, and he's still the youngest quarterback in the league.
Yeah. So to me, my most disappointing player for a team that should have won games in a division that was really, really bad. The Texans got hurt towards the end. We're playing, they were able to hold on to that lead. The Colts should have been up there in the mix more than what they were. Yeah. So to me, Anthony Richardson, you got to do better.
I had him in the playoffs at the start of the year. Yeah. So and like you said, they had everything. There wasn't a piece that you looked at and said, "Oh, they're really missing this. This is going to be the reason they lose." No. But to go on to mine, I feel a little bad saying this because this isn't necessarily all his fault, but Trevor Lawrence. It got to be one of the most disappointing players from this year. And he only played 10 games.
For how much money he's getting
much money he's making, yes, he only played 10 games, but in those 10 games, you barely had over a 60% completion percentage. You passed for barely over 2,000 yards. You had 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and more so, you only had 2 games where you passed for over 250 passing yards, which is kind of like the benchmark for quarterbacks right now. It used to be higher, but now it's falling a little bit. That a lot of people this year said Trevor Lawrence could finally break out. He had a promising year a few years ago when they beat the Chargers in the playoffs. Yeah, he's made the Pro Bowl, I'm pretty sure. And yes, this is not entirely his fault. They had a shit ton of injuries to the receiving core. They fired, obviously a head coach that ended up being fired. They didn't have the best O-line, and their defense was Swiss cheese for pretty much most of the season. But you weren't playing good either. And so that, especially, like you said, how much money he's making, the expectations for
Christian
him.
Kirk also got hurt.
Number 1 overall pick.
Broke his collarbone.
So it's, it's not all your fault, but you still did not perform up to the expectations that people had for you. And I'm guessing the expectations that he had for himself.
And the organization.
Do you think it's time for a change with him? Does he need a new organization?
The Jaguars, that's another thing. It's just the Jaguars as a whole, with how they handled this whole coaching cycle. Fuck, dude. It's like, Trevor, you got to get out of there,
He's getting a pretty good offensive-minded coach, though, and what he did with Baker.
That's
that's some promise.
That's very true.
But you can only do so much.
You can.
You can only do so much.
Especially when it starts at the top. And they're a very bad organization, top to bottom.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah.
But.
So, best moment of the year. I truly believe this.
With all the stuff behind it and
I'm going to go, my moment of the year, maybe a little recency bias. There's a lot I could have picked from. There was tons. There's a Hail Mary with Washington. I know that to some people is very bad or very, So there's a lot of great moments.
Yeah.
My favorite moment, though, I think was Cooper DeJean getting the pick 6 in the Super Bowl.
On his birthday.
For a lot of reasons. It was his birthday. And I think with all the talk for years of white guys can't play corner.
It's a position you can't play.
There's never been a starting white cornerback in the NFL. All this stuff.
There was, I think, what was his name? It was Jason Sehorn, I think. He played for the Giants. And I only know his name because of Madden.
Yeah.
His Madden card.
Exactly
one of the only white cornerbacks that has ever done something in the NFL. But yes, it's just a position that you haven't been able to play. And it's like
the truth of it.
It requires a physicality that you can't really produce.
Yes.
And it's
so for him to do this in the Super Bowl against the so-called best quarterback in the league right now, being a rookie, I think this is something that kids will look at and go,
I played DB. I was a DB in high school. It was not something that, it's not something that you see very often.
So
I think I want to add on to this. Cooper DeJean was the highest graded cornerback in the league this year. The league.
So to me, it's just a cherry on top of what he was able to do in the Super Bowl and what he's able to do for his team. And to me, you could almost say that was the dagger in that Super Bowl, to where it was like
before halftime. They're trying to, because after that, Mahomes threw another interception, but that started it. It was 10-0 at that point.
I think Cooper, what he did, I think that could be
moment of the year.
A moment of the year poster in kids' rooms across the country of I want to be like him. And I think it was great for football.
Their other rookie, Quinyon Mitchell, earlier in the year, because I think Cooper had a couple interceptions during the regular season, but one of them, he posted a pic about it, and Quinyon Mitchell, the corner that they drafted out of Toledo, goes, "That's my Jackie."
That's funny. And he played really good too all year. Those two guys were amazing for them all season.
The Eagles have them locked down. Literally, they have them as lockdown for the next 4 years, 5 years.
Darius Slay said he wants to come back and play another year, so that defense is going to stay.
Yep.
But yes, Cooper, I think that was the moment of the year. There's so many I could have picked from.
Yeah.
Maybe
from the biggest game.
From biggest game, pick 6, kind of a little bit of the dagger.
Yeah.
White cornerback never happened. It was his birthday. I thought it was pretty cool.
And then mine, you alluded to it. Thanks for reminding me that this is my choice for best moment of the year. It hurts. It hurts to say this is the best moment of the year, but
I thought you put this as worst moment.
No, this is the best. My worst moment is something way worse. Trust me. This play right here changed the trajectory of 2 franchises for the season in an instant. Chicago went straight down Washington went straight up. I don't even need to say the play because I'm talking about the Hail Mary. Everybody remembers where they were when they saw, this game's over. I was, let me retell this story. So I was getting ready to get on a flight back to Atlanta. I was in Salem for Halloween, and I was watching the game at the gate. And I had the game on. We had just we scored the touchdown to take the lead. I watched them kick the ball to Washington. I watched Washington not gain any yards for their first 2 plays. And I was like, okay, I can turn this game off. Thank God we won.
Had to board my plane.
Thank God we won.
It's going to be a fun flight home.
I get on. I literally tell the person scanning my code that the Bears won. And then I get on the plane. I'm walking through the aisle.
You said the Bears.
I said the Bears won, and I texted my dad and said, "This is what good teams do. They win the games like this." Swear to God, I'll go back and find the text.
That's right.
If you want
good teams. The Washington.
Walking through the aisle. Walking through the aisle. I'm so happy. I'm about to take a nice nap on the way home, and then I hear a guy go, "No fucking way!" And my balls just sank into my stomach. It was just like, oh,
there's no way.
And then I see his screen. And I see Washington rushing the field. Dan Campbell spikes his headset. And I'm just like, oh, my God. But it's best play of the year. I can't say it's not. Yeah. Like, everybody, like I said, everybody remembers where they were when this happened. Washington went on to be one of the best teams in the league. They went to the NFC Championship game off of this momentum. And the Bears quite literally
fell apart,
dismantled themselves after this.
Yeah.
It was just a downward slope. And so yes, this play was awesome. Even if it hurt me like hell, this play was great. And it's going to be a play that gets replayed over and over and over again. Yep. And that's what constitutes a great play, I think.
Guys, do I get the greatest play?
What's yours?
What do you
I'd have to say, I'm going to actually say that moment of the year for me, well, it's the whole game. It's the fact that the Eagles won, KC lost, and the world is healed.
The world is healed.
The world is healed, according to Dylan.
The Chiefs got humbled a little bit.
Nothing better
was slightly
than seeing
necessary.
the season in the way that it did.
That was the cherry on top to a very good NFL season.
It's funny how everything always finds its way back.
Like, how many games did they
Well,
win
and that's
by
what it was like. It's like
less?
at one point, like you're gonna flip the coin and get heads.
Yeah.
And
Not
they
12
were
times
flipping
in
the
a row.
coin and got tails 20 times in a row, and it was like, okay,
It was 12.
At some point it's gonna land on heads.
12 in a row.
And the Super Bowl, it finally landed on heads, and they got humbled a little bit.
They did. They got their asses handed to them. That is probably up in the running for
a lot of
moment
people.
the
I would probably say that's the case.
Probably was.
Worst
Absolutely.
moment of the year. So my worst moment
I
of
had
the
to
year.
help you with this one, and I'm surprised that you didn't think of this.
This one was a little hard for me until Dylan kind of was like, hold on,
Showed you the light.
Look at your own team. And I was like, oh, ding, ding, ding. So, Patriots winning the last game of their season against the Bills' second string because the Chiefs were so lucky and won some of these games to where the Bills had nothing to play for the last week, so they just played all their backups. We end up beating them, losing out on the first pick of the draft, and then hours later firing our coach who just won the game to not get us the first overall pick. So to me, that was a very clear no-brainer for me personally. That was the worst moment of the year of watching that game knowing, please just lose, but we're going to win because we're playing backups.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Joe Milton decided to look like prime Brady.
Against backups.
Dead ass. I'm not kidding.
He had something to
had
prove.
stats. He had numbers that hadn't been done since Brady in like 2016. That's not a lie.
So that did suck. We lost out on a lot. Do I think it helped though? Our trajectory of our team, probably.
Well, you got the head coach you wanted.
Got Mike Vrabel, so I think everything will be fine. I ultimately think that if we had the one pick,
Abdul Carter,
I think we would have traded it anyway.
Maybe.
I still think we're going to be, again, we can talk about this later, but that was my least favorite moment of the season when I really looked. Me personally.
You literally, though, you could have been last year's draft. Dylan watches his team pick number 1 overall.
Yeah.
This year's draft, when you guys are there, you could have seen your team pick number 1 overall.
Four.
That
still
would have been
picking 4,
cool.
which there's still a lot of hope, and I think we're going to do the right thing. But it could have been 1. We could have traded for a haul. We could have done so many things with that just to hold the power of it.
Yep.
And
I did enjoy that. I enjoyed that whole offseason when the Bears had it up until they traded the pick.
Yeah. Yeah. So me personally, that would have been awesome to just know that we hold the power of if anyone wants to trade up for one of these quarterbacks and what we would get for that or what. And now because Gerard Mayo sucks and the Chiefs were so good and had, the Bills didn't have anything to play for in that last game. There were a lot of things that went into it. That was my least favorite moment of the year.
And mine, I'm staying pretty close to home with this. And yes, you thought that the Hail Mary was the worst moment of the year. Let's go to Thanksgiving. Let's go to the Bears Thanksgiving game and how that game ended.
Everyone saw this one too.
Everybody saw this. This was the climax of the Bears season. This was just the cherry on top, and what ultimately ended up, leading to Eberflus being fired the day after Thanksgiving. So yeah, I'm talking about the Bears and how they probably would have beaten the Lions on Thanksgiving, but instead, Caleb drives us down the field, proceeds to take a sack with 50 seconds on the clock. We have two timeouts. We have a timeout. Sorry, we have a timeout. Eberflus apparently is daydreaming on the side of the field and maybe wondering about what he's going to eat for Thanksgiving later that day. Probably, and doesn't call a timeout. Lets the clock bleed. And then the Bears try one last play as time is expiring from damn near midfield when you could have kicked the game-winning field goal. And the ball drops, game over, and all of Chicago, and pretty much the entire NFL is like, what the hell?
What did we just watch?
What the hell did I just see? Like, just something so stupid that coaching malpractice, coaching suicide, whatever you want to call it. It can't be called suicide because he's the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys now. Thank God he won't have to worry about timeouts there.
Good shit, Jerry.
Yeah, let's go, Jerry.
Go Cowboys.
Eberflus's brain stopped working, if it ever was. And so, that's my worst moment of the year. I don't think anything comes close, at least for me.
Listen, you guys both have personal reasons for your worst moments. As a fan of the game, my worst moment was probably that hit that Trevor Lawrence took.
Oh, yeah.
And because that started to call into question quarterback safety, whatnot, some of these players doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
That really ended their season. He wasn't playing as great as he could have been, as you said. However, that was that was a scary, and there were other times too. How about when Tank Dell caught that touchdown and that was an awful thing that happened into that. There were a few moments this season that Tua, and then then he's freaking diving forward with his head. I mean, what is he thinking? So there were a few moments like that were scary. But your guys' moments were definitely
a little personal
around your team. A little personal.
A little personal, yes.
Yeah.
So the story that we're going to wrap up with this. A story that just broke out. I'm really curious to see what Chris has to say about this. I have my opinion on it. Last Chance U. Do you remember what Last Chance U is?
Oh, yeah.
The Netflix show about
JUCO. Yes.
Okay. Yep. Last Chance U players from season 2 are coming out and now suing Netflix $30 million, claiming they signed a contract to not receive any benefits from the show within the time.
They were coerced into signing, is what they said, with an ultimatum. So
that is what they're claiming.
Pretty much that they were already at the JUCO. EMCC East Mississippi was already the best junior college, or is that what it's called? JUCO?
Junior, yeah.
In the nation. Netflix approached them to make a show about them.
Yes.
And so they approached the players after, the university says they're up for it. They approached the players and they said,
this is what they're claiming.
They're claiming that they approached them and said if they did not sign the contract saying that they could follow them, throughout their season, interview their lives, their classes,
go in their dorm room,
they would be barred from practice and games. They would not be able to go. And that's if they didn't sign it. They were not allowed to consult outside legal advice before signing the contract. I don't know how legal that is. If that's in writing, that would be all the proof you need.
And this is what they're claiming. Again.
That's what they're claiming. It was, I think, 6 total people that are suing for $30 million, saying that they still have received no compensation for any of that.
They signed the contract.
They signed the contract. But there is, like I said, you need proof. And there is something called duress. When you sign a contract under duress, if you can prove that it was duress, you were being forced to do something, it can be voidable. But that's not the only thing that would need to happen, because after the contract's voided, you would then need to sue them for the value that you say you're worth during that time period and what the show ended up making. But Chris probably has more expertise on this. So do they have basis on this?
I'm going to say my opinion before we get yours. Okay. My opinion is I think this is another classic example of, oh, I'm going to chase my bag. All these guys probably sat around with their buddies and were like, hey, did you ever get paid from that Netflix show? And they were like, no. And they, oh, well, you should have. It's probably made millions of dollars. You should look into that. Yeah. They hired a lawyer. Of course, a lawyer's going to take this because to them, it's like, holy crap. Like, I could make some serious, this was a very well-known show. This was a well-known whatever. But to me, you signed the contract. You knew what you were doing. And now you're trying to go back the same way some of these other players are and going, no, because of how college football is now, I deserve what I would have had, back then if the rules were this now. And to me, it's just unfortunate that you played college football in that time frame, in that realm.
I would like to say, though, that a similar situation is going on with the NCAA and Reggie Bush right now, who is suing them. I don't know if the lawsuit's open right now, but he plans on bringing forth a lawsuit saying that they capitalized on all that stuff and they took my Heisman away for me doing the same thing. Yeah. And so it's like kind of similar conversation because it wasn't legal back then.
To me, it's just like it sucks that the rules are the way they are now, and it sucks that some of these great players didn't reap the benefits of that.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, that's just how it is. Yeah. To where I kind of use the example of, I said with the whole presidency, and if Trump, him wanting to do no tax on tips and no income tax, that would be like me going to my employer and going, hey, because this is now how it is,
all the tips I made
from the last 10 years, I want it all back. You can't just go back and all of a sudden do that. It doesn't work like that. So to me, this is the same thing.
What do you think, Chris? Do they have grounds to sue? The lawsuit's happening.
Well, I mean, I can tell you one thing. I mean, I know some folks that are in Hollywood. We have a relative of ours actually that was in a Subway commercial. She got paid a lot of money for that. But I can tell you before she got paid a lot of money for that because before we started asking questions and actually got her legal counsel and got her an agent, it went from a few $100s to tens of thousands of dollars, tens upon tens. So those things do happen, and Hollywood is a shady business.
Oh yeah.
Now, I mean, you might know, Dylan, like, does that fall under RICO? The fact that if you have a group of guys, if they can prove it, if they can prove that they were coerced, and if anywhere it says you're off this team if you don't do this,
that's what I'm saying. That's where they need is proof.
That's where they could win.
That would count as duress.
And I agree with you on that.
And now the money, though, I think that's where it's going to be really tough. How are they going to decide? Like, these guys will probably get some money. Unfortunately, most of it will be taken away by the lawyers, so they won't get as much as they want. But shady deal, it shouldn't have been done in the first place. They shouldn't have tried to bribe them by saying, "Oh, you'll get more publicity and you'll have TV
that's why
time.
They went to a
coaches
JUCO.
Will know who you are," and all this nonsense. It reminds me, Dawson, of like when we were younger, whether it was going to football camps or going to lacrosse camps, where they were money grabs. They would bribe you by saying, "Oh, you're going to meet all these coaches and you're going to end up being able to get a scholarship," and all this nonsense. And so it's going to be an ugly deal. I'm curious to see how this comes out.
I would say, I think what makes the most sense, if they do end up settling and they do end up getting some sort of payment, it would probably end up being some sort of like a form of royalty for moving forward, where everything the show makes from now until however, and that's just the whole show, because they were on a season of the show. They get to capitalize on the title of the show, because Last Chance U does basketball now. I'm pretty sure they still make football seasons. And so this could be a way forward where they get a percentage, and so they're continuing to make off of it.
Yeah, it's a bad look, too, for the producers and the owners of that brand.
Well, we know this of Netflix.
Because if they get known that we use our athletes, we don't pay them, that's an ugly look.
Regardless on if it's true, it's a bad narrative to have surrounding you right now.
My question to you is, why aren't we seeing the other 4 seasons of Last Chance U?
This just happened last night.
The players on that come out and say, "Oh, they didn't do that for me either."
This just happened last night.
That's going to be interesting too.
So that's another good point. What happens when this is true and now players from season 1 and the players from the other
they had a
college that
basketball
they
one.
did
They
for
What
had
3 and
schools
4.
though? Like I'd want to go back and look
They
at the
did-
schools
they did
where
Eastern
they were
Mississippi
from.
were the first
Community
2.
College. Yeah.
And then they did the one with
don't
in
remember their
Indiana.
name.
I
Yes.
can't remember. It was with that coach,
Notre Dame
the
colors.
John B. coach.
Yes.
The guy who smokes the cigars,
Yeah.
the really roughneck guy. And then they did one in California with I can't remember the name, but it was a green school.
Yeah.
And then they did a basketball one.
Yes.
So they've done I think 5 seasons.
Probably over 200 athletes that they have been in contact with and
talked to, interviewed, were in their homes.
So if this is true,
I would
could potentially
more people
start
would come
seeing
out.
some.
And then you kind of know, okay, it wasn't just a quick money grab.
Because these were all people from the same team. Like this was not them communicating with people from other teams that were also a part of it. So yes, that could be the next step. Is that this gets way bigger and this turns into $100 million lawsuit.
Yeah,
that could be something crazy.
To me, though, on paper, and just it seems like a money grab to me. It seems like, hey, we should have earned some money, and regardless if we sign this or not. I don't know.
Well, and you could argue that they should have been given something.
That's
there
not
should
the
have been
argument.
some compensation.
I agree.
They were on
that
TV.
you should have. Yes, 100%.
The fact that they gave them
saying.
0,
but you
made this happen.
If that's
They should've
what it
given them
was,
something.
though, if that's what it was, and that's what the deal was, you signed that.
Yeah.
You knew what you were signing.
Yeah.
If you had problems with it, the same way we talked about with the whole Subway thing, you should have taken it and gone, hey, is this right?
The part that I think they have the most grounds for is the fact that they said you're not allowed to consult other legal teams. Or I'm guessing they threatened to revoke the offer altogether if they found out that players were doing that. And obviously, you know, if a player that has no idea about contracts suddenly shows back up and he knows now, that's, you know. So if they can get proof of that, because that's one duress, that's there's other terms for that. It's all illegal. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, if they can prove that, they
that's
have
malpractice.
A case.
That's lawyer malpractice.
Yeah, that's taking advantage. I mean, it wasn't like these guys just had some job or hey, you're going to be a part of this cast of a, you know, on a show. This was like your team. You played for this school. This was real life.
Literally
it's
following
totally
their
different.
lives. They were in their dorms following like
cars,
them in between
driving
classes.
to school.
Yeah. This was way more than just filming during practice.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong. Do I think they deserve something for how popular they made that show?
Oh yeah,
100%.
Mm-hmm.
But if you sign the contract that said, hey, you're not going to do anything.
Got to find proof that the contract was made in bad faith. That is probably the number one goal for them right now.
You brought it up too. You also kind of have to assume that someone as big as Netflix, they know what the hell they're doing. And they know how to cover their tracks for something like this not to happen. If you assume that too. So it's...
But if Netflix, like, say this lawsuit leads to an audit of that whole situation in that time period, it's really hard to 100% erase something that's already been brought up into the air. So it's possible. And Netflix is a $1 billion corporation at this point, so...
Yeah. Going to be interesting.
I wouldn't put it past him.
I will, and like you said, this just happened. So
yeah,
it's
just literally last night I saw this and I was like, oh yeah, we're talking about this.
It's going to be some time before we probably really get some information on it, but it will be fun over the next couple years to continue to get. Now that I bring it up though, I think I am very intrigued to see if other players from the other seasons on different teams come out and say the same thing.
I'd be willing to bet they do.
I hope they do, and I hope there's proof of it.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't have to tell you, you know, you're guilt or innocent until proven guilty, and that's what this will be.
Somebody call Elon. Get him in there with Doge. Do an audit.
Yep.
Well, that will wrap up episode. What did we say?
28.
28 i75 Live. Unfortunately, we will not have an episode next week.
Yeah.
Dylan is in Chicago, and it just so happens that we are out of town leaving for Chicago the day he gets back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of unfortunate that we overlapped that way. So next week, there will be no episode.
But we will be working on some stuff next week that will be used later on. We're, getting our interviews settled and our format for those interviews squared away. So when we come back in 2 weeks, we should have some new stuff for you guys.
Yes. And quick shout out to our 2024 pick'ems.
Austin.
We've noticed we last episode before the Super Bowl, we were tied. Austin Goodrum won. His nickname's Gunny. We call him Gunny. He won. So as a deal, I said at the beginning of the year, he already kind of sent it to me because we've talked. but I will be buying him the Barstool Life is Too Short to Bet the Under sweatshirt. That's the one he wanted. So I'm going to order that up for him. I was hoping I was going to buy it for myself because it is a pretty cool sweatshirt.
Do better next year.
I will be ordering Gunny that. And he also is a huge Bengals fan and baseball fan. He loves baseball. And with the baseball coming up,
Reds fan.
I think we are going to maybe use him as maybe some betting stuff for season-long bets, some teams to look out for of guys who we added. I know he's very well into that. So we're going to
March Madness as well.
March Madness is coming up, and I know Vanny and all the guys we talk about, they're all big college guys. So it's gonna be a fun time without football. Unfortunately, without football, but we've got a lot of great stuff.
See you guys.
The draft will be here before
we know
That's
it.
true.
We've got an insider that works with the Miami Dolphins that is huge on some of these under the radar prospects for the draft that we are also planning on talking to. So yes, a lot of great things from the I-75 team. And yes, we hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. Let us know some of your worst and best moments of the season. I'm sure with all of us liking different teams, it's going to be different. Yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of get some takes on some different fans and what they thought was the best versus the worst of certain players and certain moments. But yes, thank you again for watching. Don't forget social media, all of our short clips and long clips, Spotify, YouTube. And yeah, we will see you guys next time.
Leave a like on the video, please.
Yes, much appreciative. Yes.
Sir, it's been real, guys.